Well, good evening, Dog Nation. This is another Wednesday night, and somehow we're going to roll out with a show, even though that Gator Hater countdown you guys all know and appreciate so much on the Dog Nation daily programs. It's now below 4 digits. So what does that mean? I think that the topic around our show today is how much could a Florida loss hurt a recruiting class? As always, I'm Jeff Sintel, your intrepid host and reporter here for Dog Nation. We do this every Wednesday night. Thank you to everybody out there that's joining us again. Shout out to everybody on Dog Nation Facebook. Shout out to everybody on Dog Nation YouTube. Hope everybody's having themselves a fine evening. Quickly, as we jump into the show, brought to you each and every week by Kroger. Also found each and every week on your Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, and Apple podcast platforms. Brought to you by Kroger, of course. Would sure appreciate a like. I want everybody to give me some quick interaction and let me know, you can hear me okay, everything's streaming across okay, that the sun still came up the last 5 or 6 days since what happened in Jacksonville. Hope everybody's doing well. So that leads us to the point of our show today, which is basically, this is a different year. This is a different year for a lot of reasons. And our first topic we're going to get in today, I guess we would call this our opening segment, is, how much does this loss, especially to Florida, how much does that impact things on the recruiting trail? Now, normally I would say a lot of recruits don't really look at wins and losses. They want to do their own thing. They want to be part of their own class. I think where Georgia's class is right now, it kind of leaves the guys that haven't made the commitment yet to the class, or at least the public commitment to the class, still wanting to see a few things, still wanting to absorb a lot more data. And I think normally in most years that a win or a loss doesn't really affect things, especially in the event a recruit was leaning towards a certain way, like let's say Georgia, and then Georgia suffers a bitter loss. Well, then that would kind of intensify their need to come and be a part of change, come be a part of renewal, come be a part of growth. Because normally in most years, there's so many other things for recruits to latch onto and be impressionable, or to, I guess, be swayed by things that happen besides an on-field win or loss on the recruiting trail. That's where I think this COVID year is a lot different. There's so few things that can impact or make a seismic impression on these recruits that I do think a loss, especially the way that Georgia lost to Florida, can impact a couple of guys. And the couple of guys that I would say there is Xavier Sorey and also Terry and Arnold. Well, those guys are, Georgia and Florida are two of their final top schools, their final big schools. Xavier Sorey was supposed to make his decision this month. And you got guys elsewhere that are watching and checking and wanting to see how everything's going on, especially some defensive backs that are seeing how Georgia's, vaunted, future first round, second round, third round NFL draft pick DBs are getting scorched a little bit in these big time ball games. And just as what may have it, look at the remaining major targets on the trail for Georgia. You've got a linebacker in Xavier Sorey, defense. You've got a cornerback in Nyland Green, defense. You got I think a cornerback starting out, and then maybe a safety later on in his career, Terry and Arnold, or even vice versa, because I think Terry can cross train and do all 5 positions should he choose Georgia or anywhere in the SEC. But then you've also got Corey Foreman, defense, Mason Smith, defense. A lot of these guys, they see not a robust performance by the Georgia defense, to say the least, and that would lead to an impression. I want to take you to this tweet from Lavassier Carroll. Now, Lavassier is a very connected dude because he's at IMG with Xavier Sorey. He's at IMG with Marlon Dean. He's at IMG with Tyler Booker, another guy who's who likes what he's seen at Georgia so far in the 2022 class. That's a big right tackle for IMG Academy. I think Booker's a good example to start with. Booker, there's some chatter out there. There's some things out there that, Booker's new leader is Florida on the heels of what the Gators have done over the last couple of weeks and how they've recruited him. Georgia's still in the picture for a guy like Booker, but then you see, that tweet again. I'll ask Michael to call it up here right now. Is that you see, Lavassier is kind of laughing about it, but he's talking about everybody wants to be Gators now, and I think this is a different year, especially because this is a year where I don't think you can look at Georgia's issues and say, oh, here comes some triage or here comes some reinforcements from the recruiting trail to kind of batten up that area. I don't think Georgia will get any better pass rushers than they currently have in the program right now, especially not in this recruiting class who would make that type of an impact as an Azeez Ojulari, a Jermaine Johnson, a Nolan Smith and Adam Anderson and the like. And I don't think the same thing will be said about any DBs or corners or safety as well than what Georgia currently has right now, except for maybe Richard LeCount, Lewis Seen, those guys right there. Point being is those guys didn't play most of the Florida game or any of the Florida game. But that's another reason there where you look at it and you're like, recruiting trail is not going to help things. I think right now, what most people have been talking about this week is what most people should be talking about this week if they fervently follow the University of Georgia. And that's the quarterback position. And I think there's a lot of ills right now in the program that are infecting everything. You see an all SEC punter like Jake Cremata shank a couple against Florida because everybody's pressing. You see those elite cornerback targets, they're pressing because they know they can't win a shootout right now with a superior offense, with a really accurate, a very future pro quarterback like Kyle Trask or like a Mac Jones. So I think everything is getting a little bit more tightened, whereas if you had a really good general that could spin the ball around, much like Jake Fromm did the last couple of years, it puts more pressure on several different aspects of the football team. I think I'm not breaking any news right now by just being as blunt by saying I think Georgia needs to find stability and growth and future at the quarterback position. They need play that's electric, and they need play that points to this is good for Georgia right now, and this is good for Georgia down the road as well. So, that's something to really consider there and think about there as well. And that's why I think right now you've got some guys that like Florida, like Georgia. I think in Nyland Green's case, that's a situation where he likes Tennessee a lot as well. I think Shmuel Munden, it's been reported that he, even though his decision is coming down on November the 18th on his grandmother's birthday, that Shmuel is going to take one last visit to Tennessee to kind of dial everything in before he makes his decision next week. Actually, this very day next week on November the 18th, by the time we go live for Before the Hedges next week, everyone will know exactly what his choice is, what his school choice is. I've gotten a notice that we're currently live only right now on Facebook. So Facebook, feel privileged, I guess. You guys are going to be live for the whole show, and then we'll have to upload things to YouTube. So that's the first topic I wanted to start, just kind of my thoughts about, hey, I think most years a loss on the field, even a bitter loss to a rival, I don't think they move the dial as much as something might this year. So that's something to pay attention to. And you see things where, Florida's got some momentum now, and it's up to Georgia to continually, to solidly recruit these young men better over the long stretch. And I think what it's happened is it's made a lot of decisions that were maybe leaning Georgia, or maybe Georgia was right where it needed to be. I think it's made these decisions and these respective recruiting processes a lot tighter. It's going to be a lot harder to win out for a lot of these young men in the end over the next month or so before the early signing period kicks in. So those are a few thoughts there. I wanted to make sure that we took a lot of time in this show to answer some questions. You guys have any questions on Facebook? You got anything you want to ask me? Please bring that to mind. But right now, I think that that did make some damage from what I'm hearing. I think Georgia's positions with a lot of guys aren't as strong as they needed to be. But at the same time, I think the biggest things for Georgia, I mean, this is a recruiting cycle where I can't say, hey, the receivers aren't what they need to be. But don't worry, because John 5-star and criminally underrated Jimmy 4-star are on the way, and they're going to be great. Not the receiver position. That happened last year. There's not any receivers coming in, guys, that are going to be any better than a Burton, than an Arian Smith, than a Marcus Rosemy Jack Saint, than a Dominic Blaylock or a George Pickens. It's not going to happen, especially this year where Georgia is looking at a pair of guys that check a lot of boxes, but they're not the speed burner right now. They're not the speed demon, Arian Smith type. I think a lot of the things that are wrong and just that feel off center with the Georgia football program and this weird pandemic affected year where nothing really feels right. I think a lot of that has to do with the quarterback position and the overall passing game that kind of, we've heard the phrase that a rising tide lifts all boats. Well, I think this is an anchor on a lot of positive growth, a lot of electric things in the program. And again, I think it's just really, it's different because this is a time where I sit there and I go, yeah, things are not going to, the recruiting trail is not going to provide all the answers for what you see right now that Georgia doesn't have or they need on the field that they're not showing. I think most of these issues are definitely internal. And that's what Georgia has to work past and get better and move forward from. And this very much so much of a crossroads season for this program. You look at the quarterback position, I think Brock Vandagriff will be a very good college quarterback. But if anybody that thinks he's going to come in and take the reins and be a dynamic playmaker right out of the box, I think it's more likely for him not to be able to do that, for him to say he would be able to do that as well, especially with a young player. I think these next four or five games for Georgia will determine, kind of what the short term and what the long term future of the quarterback position is actually going to be. So let me take a quick look at everything, what we got going on right now. I'm looking at, you guys got a question. I want to, make a call for questions. Anybody want to know about what's going on? Anybody got a specific question? I wanted to take some time early in the show to go over a lot of that. So I guess I need, let me see, a lot of questions popping in here. Dan Kiley's got one. Dan, and first of all, before I get too deep in the water here, I want you guys to, everybody, if we have someone that has served our country on Veterans Day, someone that is serving, has served, I want to say, no, first and foremost, thank you for your service. And second of all, if you have served our country, just so we can see and appreciate the folks that are on the chat, if you could do us the honor of just maybe pinging the chat with an American flag, just so we know who's hanging out and who's served our country and is part of Dog Nation in our recruiting chat tonight. Good way to honor a lot of you guys for everything that you've done for us, where we can have something like a recruiting show about Georgia football recruiting here on a Wednesday night, every Wednesday night. John Green wants to know about where's the kid out of John Paul II in Tallahassee going. John, I think it's Georgia, Florida, Alabama. I think Florida has really gotten into that situation there. Improved momentum. I know Terry Arnold took one of those down low self-guided visits to Gainesville recently as well, kind of like he's done with Georgia in the past too. Taking a good look at that school as well. Brian Marcoulier, thank you for your service, United States Army Operation Iraqi Freedom 2005-2006. Clarence Dawson, thank you, sir. I don't know, one of those things, man. I'll be happy to hang out all night and answer questions, but if I can do all that and also honor some of our veterans here on Veterans Day, I really want to do that as well. Trying to keep up with a lot of questions here. My feed is not giving me what I want to see. So I'm going to go two-screen experience here so I can pull up everything I need to see on my phone here. First off, I think Dan Cali asked the question, why is Georgia so, I guess the word would be inefficient on offense? I think it goes down to the passing game. I think it comes down to, you got to look at that game against Florida. And if you would have, you take a lot of schools, George Pickens is off the board. Dominic Blaylock's off the board. Marcus Rosame's off the board. And then you've got an issue where your quarterback is not functioning at a high level. Accuracy plagues both Dwan Mathis and Stetson Bennett after the shoulder injury he suffered earlier in that game. So I think you've got a lot of areas where I think Georgia just needed to catch fire, whether it's a catch by the tight end or it's a ball on the money to Darnell Washington. If it's a couple of those plays, and basically you saw the same play with a deep shot to Karis Jackson, just a little bit overthrown. Another deep shot to Demetrius Robertson by Dwan Mathis, just a little bit overthrown as well. I think those plays need to be made. They simply have to be made in the Georgia-Florida game. Also, that pick six that Mark Webb could have had, that's one of those moments where, yeah, this guy's not functioning. This guy's not in the game. This guy, for whatever reason, is taken off the board. I think that's an example where that guy's just got to be a senior, fourth-year senior. He's got to make that play, and he's got to be able to pick the team up on a play like that. I think folks focus on the offense, but I've said this in some different circles. I think if 11 was in that game again this year instead of in Buffalo, I think he throws for 300 yards. I think that's a shootout. I think Richard LeCounte makes Georgia so much different. So does Jordan Davis makes Georgia so much different in that ball game as well. So you want to say it's a perfect storm? I don't know if I'm going to go that far, because if you're a championship program that is recruited as well as Georgia had, well, that's a night where Georgia finds a different way to win the football game. Maybe it's 2 sacks from Nolan Smith, 2 sacks from Trayvon Walker, 2 sacks from Azeez Ojulari. Maybe that's strictly hitting that run game that worked so well when Georgia caught Florida in 23 personnel, and Florida didn't adjust personnel to match Georgia, and they had a 3 tight end, 2 back set, no receivers on the field. That was the first play of the game. Georgia shifted it the other way and had a 75-yard touchdown. That was a scheme touchdown there for sure that Monken was able to dial up. I think it comes down to the quarterback play. Look at this for a really quick reason. And quarterback play, Georgia pulled Fields off the board now. Georgia hasn't brought in a quarterback in the 2018 cycle, the 2019 cycle, or the 2020 cycle that was able to come in and play right away on scholarship. Not a difference maker quarterback. And when you're measuring yourselves against the Clemsons and the Alabamas and the Ohio States, it's very hard to keep pace with a lot of programs like that. And I mean, even look at Florida. Now, Florida and Kyle Trask, it was almost a gift and a kind of a lucky find for Dan Mullen. Jim McElwain's staff brought in Kyle Trask, and Trask wouldn't have gotten the shot he would have gotten last year at Florida without an injury to Felipe Franks. And I think the point could be made that Florida didn't even know what they had with Kyle Trask until that injury happened there. Let me see, guys. I'm sitting here trying to really look for a really detailed, dialed-in answer. Noah Sheldon, Georgia will not be able to flip Trayvon Henderson, excuse me. Yeah, and that's another thing. I think John Green brings up a good point. Mac Jones was a guy that waited his turn. He wasn't getting those reps, maybe like Carson Beck's not getting the reps now his freshman year in the 2017 class, but he waited behind Jalen and Tua, and now he's gotten his turn. And a lot of people thought that maybe the mega talented Bryce Young was going to beat him out this year. He's hung around. He's absorbed 3-4 years of practice reps, and look what he is right now. And, one thing about I see a lot of people, guys, you got to remember about Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask was a high school senior in 2015. So he's 5 years removed from his senior high school football season. And he should be playing very well right now, considering how far outside he is his high school class. I think Florida is going to be in the same situation next year. They don't have a great quarterback succession plan behind him as well. Dante Green, that's a good point. That's what I'm trying to say. He was developed. He's a guy that hung around and waited and waited and waited. Let me see. No, Dante Green. I think these are going to be battles for a lot of these guys coming down the tracks in terms of a lot of these recruits. I think um, where in maybe years past they weren't be. What I'm saying is this is the year where Georgia's problems are largely internal, and they need to be cured by the players that are already in Athens, and not, hey, here comes another robust number one, number two, number three recruiting class. Very simply put, Georgia needs to hit on a quarterback, to hit on a future at the quarterback position. Trying to going through a lot of them. See, the thing is, though, there likely won't be a three-star quarterback coming to Georgia to wait around for 4 years behind a Brock Vandagriff. Um, backing up through some, yeah, but I think Jamel Major. I'm catching your comment right now. I would say there's a lot of things that we can discuss about that, but one thing Jake Fromm always was is he was accurate. No one would confuse him about, and he played at his very best in the Georgia Florida game. Now, here's a point that I was going to write about this week, but I might as well share this right now. I want everybody to go back to the 2018 season because got a pretty good read on that season. Georgia lost to LSU, and Fromm didn't play well that game. And it was a matter of an off week, and then it was Fromm going down to Jacksonville. He played brilliantly. J.J. Holloman had a lot to do with that, but Fromm played great. And that's a situation where I thought Georgia was at a crossroads that week. If Fromm didn't play well, Florida would have taken the driver's seat in the SEC East, and Georgia would be where it is right now with not a lot to play for. And I think that would have opened things up for more of a natural. Should we give Justin more time? Should we see what should we see what Justin can do for Georgia right now? I think there was two ways that could have went, and we all know which way that went. And I think Georgia has arrived at this same point right now, which is a crossroads. Georgia has the chance to take a look back and wonder what's more important here. Is it getting to 8-2 with winning a couple of games like it did against Kentucky? Or is it more important for Georgia to find out whether they can find some lightning, let's say, at the quarterback position? I mean, a lot of things that are wrong with Georgia right now, if it would be Dwan Mathis, if it would be JT Daniels, it would be Carson Beck. If they would have played that game on Saturday and you would have saw a 20 out of 30 for 285 yards and 3 touchdowns out of the quarterback position, some deep shots, the type of arm that could get George Pickens in his route tree involved, I think then you move Karras to catching the second best cornerback on the other side. You see where Jermaine Burton and Darnell Washington could get matchups as well. I think that would have helped Georgia tremendously. And that's the thing where they just got to get something that goes on the positive side of the playmaker deficit right now at quarterback. Or I think this is going to haunt this program for a while. I really think it will. Because it's not fair to a great talent like Brock Vandagriff to come in and say, all right, come in January, win this job, be ready to play Clemson on the road in Charlotte against a DJ Uiagalelei, who has gotten a lot of time now for Clemson over the last 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, but Rick Alicorn brings up a good point. Rick, you've had some good comments the last couple of weeks, but Rick, I think the way I look at it is, look how Look how Dan Mullen, he called Kyle Trask a game manager. To me, he obviously looked like a record book manager on Saturday in Jacksonville, but he was a guy that was deadly accurate. And he made a guy like Tyson Campbell, who's going to be a second or third round corner, might even go higher depending on how he works at the combine. He made him that guy that's just continually just great enough to get beat by a first round receiver, or whether that's, that even Kirby Smart mentioned that play in the post game about how the ball with Tyreek Stevenson, that's when he picks off all the time, even when he's covering guys like, Darnell Washington, or covering guys like George Pickens. That's a play that Tyreek makes, and then he slips and falls. And, that's indicative of this season that it's been so far for Georgia. There's a lot of comments here on the feed right now about Carson Beck. Well, Carson Beck's a guy that, according to my information, hadn't gotten a lot of reps the last 4 or 5 weeks. So he hadn't had a chance to get developed. And when you bring in a guy and you want him to maybe grow and nurture and be that guy 2 or 3 years down the road and be that Mac Jones, well, if you're not getting reps, even in this playmaker deficit, I'll say again at the quarterback position, if you're not getting those reps, I think that's very hard for him to, or any quarterback, to look at things and say, am I being developed here? Is this the best place I need to be developed? So those are my thoughts. We talked a little bit already about Georgia, Florida. I think definitely Florida's win is going to help them on the recruiting trail more than it would this year and any other year, because there's so many fewer things that can grab a recruit's attention anymore than just a one-loss, really good game, a really good performance in a one singular event for the 2020 season. Speaking of things that we all are looking forward to, speaking of things that, Before the Hedges, brought to you each and every week by Kroger. This is the part of our show where we take a pause to take some time and say thank you. Here's a word from Kroger. You guys see it each and every week. You hear Brandon Adams on there as well. Here's Kroger. Take a listen.
We'll get back to the show in just a moment, but first, a quick word from Kroger. Kroger has made shopping for the groceries and household essential items that you need even easier by offering free pickup. Just shop online, choose a pickup time convenient for you, and Kroger will carefully pick out your order and bring it to your vehicle when you arrive. So the next time you're ready to shop at Kroger, take advantage of the free pickup. It's just another way that Kroger is fresh for everyone.
All right. That verb I was growing up to, everybody's going Krogering. Well, there you go. Each and every week, Kroger is our proud sponsor of Before the Hedges. My family shops there. I hope your family shops there as well. You can go Krogering, the click list, everything you need right now. I go into my local Kroger here in Woodstock, and that thing is filled to the gills. They've switched out their Halloween merchandise. Now they got their Christmas merchandise. I was able to go in just recently because when my son left his face mask, he has one of those gaiters where those scarf-like looking things. He left his at school. He left his at house on the way to school. So I had to run by my nearby neighborhood Kroger, pick up the face mask, and drop it off at the office for my son. Seems like right now is a time right now in America, time in our country, time in Georgia, where there's a lot of folks, a lot of these COVID-19 spikes are happening. We see that across the Southeastern Conference with all these postponed games, including the postponement of the Georgia game with Missouri this week. Right now, you're looking, will it be canceled? Will it be postponed? It's been postponed. Will it be replayed? You have to look deep into December to see if this game will ever get played as well. Weekly staples, we call them our table stakes of the week. The type of things that you want to put on your table for Thanksgiving, you can get at your nearby local Kroger. These are the type of table stakes we have in every Before the Hedges program. Let's take a look right now at our top targets list. And I'm going to tell you right now, guys, there's a certain group of names there. I think I stopped at 9 with the Florida State commit, Malik McCain, right there out of ING Academy. That's the speedy 3-star receiver. He's number 9. I tell you what, if I had to go to number 10, I would have chosen Byron Young out of Georgia Military College. Going to write about him very shortly on Dog Nation. But that's a guy. I don't think he's Corey Foreman insurance. I think you've noticed LSU, Auburn, other schools offering him. He's the type of guy that Georgia definitely needs in the program to maybe replenish the loss of a Jermaine Johnson, maybe even Azeez Ojulari. He might take a shot at going pro. He's certainly always on his career continues to boom the way he plays the game and the way he can be a versatile edge rusher, defensive end, outside linebacker at the next level. This is a year where Georgia has to get a little bit more outside on the edge in terms of playmakers. Corey Foreman is obviously a name that comes to everyone's minds as well. But you look at that right there. Number 9 is the aforementioned Malik McCain. I think if I went to 10 on this week's list, I would have put Byron Young there. Rightfully so. Byron's a guy that could find himself in a major program, considering the way he exploded in his freshman year and didn't even get a season this year, junior college football at Georgia Military College. Number 7 is Donovan Edwards out of West Bloomfield, Michigan. He's a guy, factor back, I would call him a 3-down back. He's a guy that I think is planning, according to what I'm hearing, he is planning to make a trip to Georgia in the next 2 or 3 weeks. He will do so with his family. That will be a major important trip, especially if they can get inside the stadium for a future game, perhaps the Mississippi State game, another one of those games down the line. Be very important for Georgia to be able to host a running back like Donovan Edwards. Number 6 is Shmile Munden Jr. We mentioned him earlier. Shmile Munden will make his decision next week. It has been reported by Rivals.com that Shmile Munden will make a trip before his decision to go check out Tennessee one last time. Shmile Munden will make his decision on November the 18th. I believe that is his grandmother's birthday, and he will do so from Paulding County High School in Dallas, Georgia. Dog Nation will be there, obviously, for that big announcement for the 2021 class. Number 5, Mason Smith out of Terrebonne High School in Houma, Louisiana. Mason Smith also wore Georgia gear again this weekend prior to his game on Friday night as well. So Mason Smith has no shortage of photo ops with Georgia gear. Number 4 on the list is Xavier Sori he's now out of ING Academy. He's from Graceville, Florida. I think Georgia and Florida are the final contenders there for Xavier Sori. You hear a lot about Xavier Sori wanting to play with Terry and Arnold as well. Number 3, Nyland Green. I expect his commitment to come down the pipe to one very lucky SEC school over the next 2 to 3 weeks, if not sooner. To me, I think that decision right there is coming down to Georgia and Tennessee. I think Nyland Green would have to notice the good work that his good buddy Eric Stokes Jr. is putting in at Georgia right now as a cornerback as well. I think it's making the rounds across social media this week how Eric Stokes is the only player in the country with a pair of pick-6 touchdowns from the defensive side of the ball. Number 2 is Corey Foreman out of Centennial, Corona, California. Corey Foreman recently turned 18. Be very interesting to see if Georgia can get both Smith and Foreman back before the middle of December. Corey Foreman is a very impressive edge rusher. I'm sure he and Mason Smith both have been looking closely at the havoc rate, the ability of Georgia's pass rush to generate a little bit more havoc this year. Georgia was leading this SEC in sacks going into the Florida game. They only got 1 against Florida. That was from Jermaine Johnson. Azeez Ojulari was also leading the SEC in sacks individually heading into the Florida game as well. Number 1 on the list remains Terry and Arnold out of John Paul II Catholic in Tallahassee. Florida, Alabama, Georgia. Certainly the Gators have caught his eyes with how they played and how they were able to put down Georgia and beat Georgia on Saturday, including how they were able to get by Georgia's DBs, especially those DBs that have been in the program for quite some time. One thing we do each and every week, we drop some decision timelines for top UGA targets. Xavier Sori, that's the first name on the board. Still think he's going to make his decision this month. Shmile Munden Jr. is November the 18th. Shamar Turner, That's a guy that's out of Texas. I don't think Georgia is one of the leading top two schools for him. He's a guy that Georgia would look to as another good piece on the defensive line front, perhaps if Georgia does not add a Foreman or a Mason Smith. Nyland Green, we mentioned him. I think his decision could come in the next 2 to 3 weeks, if not sooner. Donovan Edwards, I would look for him to make his decision in December. Mason Smith would be a December 16th, first day of the early signing period type guy. Corey Foreman, I think there's still a really good range there. Nobody really knows what Corey's going to do because Corey doesn't know what he's going to do yet in terms of what he's going to do. You read a lot of published reports out of California. Corey Foreman is a guy that it's not certain where he'll enroll early or not anymore. LSU is a school that was big for both Foreman and Smith, and LSU is having probably even bigger issues than the University of Georgia has, both on and off the field. Terry Arnold, that's the last name. He was the number one name on our top targets list again for this week. He's basically told me that he will make his decision public and known on the first day of the traditional signing period in February. Georgia, as far as things go on the with its recruitment board, Georgia remains at number 6 nationally with 18 public commitments. Not a lot of changes there. I think every ranking stayed the same. Amarius Mims out of Bleckley County still generating some viral highlights for his play so far during his senior year. Excuse me. Really starting to put a lot of big things together there. Brock Vandegrift and his Prince Avenue Christian team. Excuse me there, just had to get a little bit to drink. I'm going to make a big playoff push over the next month. It's been a career goal for both Brock and his dad to see if they could win a state title together during their senior season at Prince Avenue. Micah Morris, David Daniel, Dylan Fairchild, Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is out in California, guys. Not an early enrollee. He's going to make he's going to get to play his senior season in the spring out in California. Lavassier Carroll, he's an early enrollee type guy. Same thing for Jonathan Jefferson. David Daniel would be set to enroll early as well. Same thing for Micah Morris, Brock Vandegrift as well. Jamon Dumas Johnson, that's the inside backer out of Baltimore, Maryland. He cannot enroll early. Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, a recent Georgia commitment, can enroll early. The same thing goes for Dejon Nugget Warren. Same thing goes for Chaz Chambliss. Kamari Lassiter cannot enroll early out of American Christian Academy. Jared Wilson recently made the decision that he was not going to enroll early. He wants to play his senior season with his brother, who will be a freshman at West Forsyth. Marlon Dean, another early enrollee type. Javon Bullard, Jackson Meeks. Let's go to the snapshot, the recruiting snapshot. We break it down in-state, out-of-state. There's 8 in-state guys. There's 10 out-of-state guys. 15 within the SEC footprint and 3 beyond the SEC footprint. Said a lot right there, trying to roll through all of our normal basic food groups. And I've been alerted for a while that YouTube is back with us as well. YouTube. So now Facebook can't hog all of our comments. See, a lot of questions coming through. Desmond Lee with a thought on Brock Vandegrift. Craig Hill makes a point that I think echoes what a lot of Dog Nation is thinking right now. He says Georgia is going to have to show that it is going to open up the offense to get better quarterback and receiver recruits. I think the main thing there is, you look at the offense. I think if Georgia just needs to be effective and efficient, they hit those balls, they look crisp. And, the one thing you see about these receivers, there's really not an issue with Georgia getting separation with a lot of these receivers. It's whether maybe it's the amount of the offense they know where Georgia can show a lot of that eye candy, a lot of that pre-snap motion with a lot of formations and motions. And then for them to be able to maybe run their routes with maybe some side adjustments or be able to break off their route with some hot route adjustments. I think it's a lot of the technical and advanced aspects of the position, which I think a lot of Georgia's young receivers are struggling with right now. Much less the absence of a true number one receiver. out of the Southeastern Conference. A couple of tweets I want to take you to this week as well. You've already seen the one from Lavoisier Carroll about how Lavoisier was making light of everybody wants to be a Gator now, with a couple of laugh emojis right now. Let's look at this tweet right here. I want to bring this one up from John C. Staten. He will be I guess he would be a graduate transfer type preferred walk-on commit. He is an inside linebacker from the Atlanta area. He's at Sanford right now in Birmingham. He's set to graduate. He would have 2 years of eligibility at Georgia. He's a young man that's from the Atlanta area. I believe he's out of Lovett High School. To be a preferred walk-on type guy, but he's always been a guy that maybe has dreamed about playing for Georgia, and he made the commitment maybe a little while ago. I know it flew under a lot of radars with all the focus on the Florida game, but should be a good addition to the program. Here's a 2022 name to know, Jalen Walker. Jalen Walker's out of Salisbury, North Carolina, one of the top linebackers in the country. You hear a lot of really big schools are in it there for Jalen Walker. He just made a top 6. He included Ohio State. He included Georgia, Clemson, and Alabama. A lot of the biggest of big boys are in there. Here's a tweet that I wanted to bring up, and this is I know a lot of people that follow Georgia recruiting and in-state recruiting heavily know the name Kenyatta Watson. Kenyatta is a guy, one of the most plugged-in type guys around the country. Does a lot for young people in terms of helping them network and maybe find scholarships and get exposure. Kenyatta tweeted out something that I think I totally agree with. He just made the obvious point here that there's no way that the dead period will lift on January the 1st. There might be a thing here, folks, where I don't even think the class of 2021 will get any on-campus visits going through the February signing period as well. Will be a different recruiting cycle. Want to take you to this tweet from Byron Young. We mentioned about him earlier. If I'd had a 9th slot on the top targets, I would have put Byron Young as number 9 out of Georgia Military. Probably would have moved him up a couple of slots, actually, if I'm being true to his worth and what I'm hearing right now about how impressive Byron Young is on a lot of boards right now. Byron Young basically said, thank you to Georgia Military for everything he's done. He's going to make his decision within the next month or so. He would be a half 3 to play 3 year. They didn't have a junior college season this fall at Georgia Military, so he would have 3 years to play 3 after just playing 1 season in 2019 as a freshman. The last one I thought was very interesting I want to bring to you, and this is the father of Chris Milton. This is Chris Milton here, the father of Kendall Milton. He made a point after the Florida loss that I think sums it up very well. He's like, no matter how these wins or losses goes, each of these boys on this team are working extremely hard for the University of Georgia and for Dog Nation. All right. So that's a good coverage of everything we've seen so far, everything that we kind of talked about on the landscape now. True to my word, I'm going to see if YouTube is popping and YouTube is working right now. And if so, YouTube, I'll give you guys some good attention as well, seeing what's happening right now. You guys got a question? You guys got something you want to know? Instead of telling you anything that I'm at liberty to share, I will do my best to share insight. Enrique Murillo, hey, how are you? George Mullahan, man, hope you're doing well as well. One of the things I'm not sure if we were live while we if we were live while I did so is, hey folks, today is Veterans Day. Just wanted to say a salute and a very big tribute from the bottom of my heart on Veterans Day to all of those that have served our nation and served it proudly and served it so well. Your service is definitely appreciated. That allows us the chance to come on a Wednesday night and have Dog Nation over 5.5 years straight, where an entire program is dedicated to talking about the recruits that are at Georgia, that are on their way to Georgia, and that could choose Georgia as well. Old guy physics. I was really impressed by Eli. He is a very sharp dude, a funny dude. Knows how to handle a press conference room as well. To me, I think that guy's got a very bright future. And I think everybody forgets, it's not like Jamie Newman is here and Jamie Newman's playing poorly and having the same results. Georgia's getting the same results at the quarterback position. I think a lot of these things, whether it's Pickens, it's Marcus Rosemy, whether it's Dominic Blaylock, that takes away the impact and what I want to say is the fear factor, or just the playmaking ability of the wide receiver position. That in turn affects the quarterback play. I think it enhances and magnifies what Georgia does not do well. Do they have a deep ball arm? Do they have a lot of guys that can carve up a defense? Do they have a lot of guys that are accurate? Do they have a lot of guys that have a lot of playing experience? I think that's one thing where Georgia is certainly lacking at the quarterback position. A lot of things are going up with YouTube, up and down, up and down. And like we said earlier in the chat, we will upload this show as soon as it's over, so you guys on YouTube will be able to see the full Monty, so to speak. And this is something I put on the Dog Nation forum, forum.dognation.com. Let me see if I can get the pulse here of Dog Nation on a Wednesday night here in Woodstock, Georgia. I think there's really two things to think about, and I think everybody's going to try to accomplish both. But in one hand, I think there's a great need for Georgia to go 8-2 to win the rest of these very winnable games where they're going to be favored by at least 10 to 14 points and finish out strong with the season. I think there's no shame in losing to Alabama and Florida in an environment like this where Georgia has not shown they're going to be able to win a shootout. Maybe that changes the program for the better. In one hand, what's more important to you, folks? Is it more important for Georgia to go 8-2, or is it more important for Georgia to experiment with a JT Daniels, with Dwan Mathis, with Carson Beck at the quarterback position, so Georgia can see if it can find a guy to see? Kirby Smart used this term in his press conference over this week, some juice. If Georgia can find some lightning, some excitement, some future, some roots with the quarterback position. For everybody out there, I'm going to go option A, 8-2, or juice. Which one of those? Really simple one-word thing for you guys to type out. What's more important to each of you on your priority or your hierarchy scale? It's more important for Georgia to show some gravitas at the quarterback position, or is the most important thing to find a way to finish 8-2 and go to a better bowl game and still wind up with a top 10 team? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about that. See, you guys I knew I'd get some Brandons out there, the guys that want it all. Johnny Webster, I admire you, man. You want both. Charles Kaiser says, let's see what Daniels and Beck can do. Noah Sheldon, I'm certainly going to disagree with you for that last statement. Mike Gay wants to find a quarterback for next year. Mark Brock, he wants some juice. Tennille Kilcrease Calvino, thank you. Donta Green says, he thinks it's better to experiment with QBs. Donta, so who do you think Georgia should start? I know a lot of people are revolving on, for the Missouri game, folks were telling me that they wanted to see 2 quarters from Daniels, 2 quarters from Mathis.
Dante Green would rather have a quarterback of the future. Yeah, somebody makes a good point. Dante Green wants to see Beck. Desmond Lee wants to see whole games. Rick Martin, you make a great point. More than likely, the Missouri game will not be played, so it would be 7-2, perhaps not 8-2. And I think a lot of folks, they just need to see it, and maybe they would understand maybe the decision with Stetson Bennett, maybe the decision with Dwan Mathis. If JT Daniels gets in the game and shortcomings are seen, Carson Beck gets in the game and shortcomings are seen, I think that would explain a lot. I think a lot of folks just want to see it for themselves. But I think on the other hand, I think there's a segment out there, if either one of those guys catches fire and gets in a rhythm and starts making a bunch of plays, people will start wondering, why didn't they play this guy the whole season? And maybe, knowing this staff and the way they prepare their quarterbacks, well, these were the first times where they give these young men, whether it's Beck or Daniels or Mathis, the lion's share of reps in order to go out and play well in the next game. Some chatter on Facebook about LeCount. There's not a red shirt involved at all this year, guys. Richard LeCount's going to be a tremendous safety in the NFL. Michael Webb makes the point where he says he doesn't think it's an either or deal. If the D is healthy, Georgia can win ugly if needed while they look at the quarterback position. They can get a few more big plays from the position. That is more than Georgia has consistently gotten to date, and Georgia can win with what is left. I tell you what, Noah Sheldon, I got to give you a little bit of credit, man. You're certainly trying. He's experimenting with trying to find just the right comment on our feed. Jacob Darnell, I don't know if you caught us earlier in our program, but I would look for Corey and Mason Smith to make a visit within the next 2 to 3 weeks, probably by the end of this month, first parts of December. They're still looking, according to my information, that they were going to take a visit to Georgia in that time frame. Sean Miller wants Juice. James McGill wants both, to be honest. Tristan West wanted 8-2 to help recruiting. John Leggett wants to find somebody. Stephen Wainwright wants to see anybody else that he's seen so far. Tristan West, when we reload our show, you'll be able to see my thoughts on all those matters on our program. Anyway, guys, I don't know about you. It's been another Wednesday night here on Before the Hedges. I got rain outside my house. Hope you guys are having a good night and you guys are tucked in and at home safely. Before the Hedge is brought to you each and every week by Kroger. You can find us on Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, Facebook, the Apple Podcast platform as well. You guys have enjoyed the program. I certainly wouldn't mind a like or a rating on the Apple Podcast platform. Something to do tonight. Before we go, I want your Masters favorite, and I want you to know what the score is. And if you don't have a take on the Masters, say, I don't follow golf, dude. If you do, love to hear your take as well on who you think is going to win the Masters. I'll toss it out. I think he's going to win the Masters. I think it's going to be John Rahm. I think he's going to shoot around 11 under. I'm not sure if we'll get all 72 holes, but I think the conditions with a little bit of precipitation on those greens will soften things up, and I think low scores can be had. Colby Curry wants to see JT or Carson. Not a lot of Masters folks here. I wanted to throw that. Rick Martin has a point. We have a comment from Jamel. He says, just face it, guys. Georgia is the unluckiest team to ever play football. If it can go wrong, it will go wrong for Georgia. Mike Gay is not Johnny Webster, I saw that when he was skipping on 16 as well. Dante Green doesn't follow golf. Reed Logan has Rom as well. Chad Buchanan speaks the truth. Georgia needs a couple players. They just need to find a couple of dynamite receivers. I think that helps out a lot. I think finding the dynamite receiver would be a lot swifter of a process than finding one of those incredible, immediate, right away, elite quarterbacks. Guys, I'm Jeff Sintel. It has been another Before the Hedges. I hope you and yours are having a fine Veterans Day this evening. Check us out on dognation.com. For all the team here on Dog Nation, Mike Griffith, Connor Riley, Michael Carvel, BJ Sweeney, Brandon Adams, of course, who'll be back on live at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. I'm Jeff Sintel. Check you later. We're going to have coverage. We got more stories dialed up this weekend to kind of fill the void of no game on Saturday. Hope you guys will get a chance to enjoy some golf, a chance to maybe connect with your family, and also get out to your local Kroger as well. Take it easy, everybody. We'll see you again on the pages of dognation.com.